Chapter 9, 26th day of April, 1679, late morning. Heed me well, ma chérie. Take good care. Pierre took my hands and held them to his lips, then continued to hold them, reminding me of another time they were held in that way, not so long ago, in a different place. We sat at the unlit fireside talking. Moments before, I had told him of my plans to release Willoughby this day with the assistance of Lady Powys. Lady Powys is of good blood, he said, but 'tis dangerous to stand in her company. There are spies everywhere, and though we know it to be false, her husband is held to account for the plot against our king. I am acquainted with all this, Pierre, I said, but she is a good woman. It is with her aid I have helped more innocents in jail than I could have done alone. She is generosity incarnate. If you saw how grateful are those in need for her charity, you will not doubt her. I turned my hand to hold his hand as he held mine. Pierre was so patient with me and my quest to better the lot of the prisoners where I could, but he feared too deeply for my safety. I do not doubt her, only her company, Lizzie. Any associated with the good lady will be tarred by the same brush as her, for she is painted with that of a conspirator along with her husband. It is said the true reason she was not herself taken is not because she is believed innocent, but only that proof could not be found against her. They will continue to search for any proof, even false proof. Pierre paused, then asked, She is very interested in this Willoughby. Why is that? I did not know how much to tell Pierre, not because I did not trust him, but because I did not wish to gather his disapproval. He would not like my meddling in politics. The man has laid bare himself to be employed by Lady Powys, and she has seen fit to set him a task. What sort of task? His suspicious attitude was warranted. I stayed quiet for a moment while I tried to order my thoughts. I did not want to keep secrets from Pierre. Not telling him before was an omission, not a falsehood. But now he asked outright, I must reveal what we, or rather I, had done. Willoughby is compiling an article. What article is this you speak of? He gathers evidence of the ill treatment of Catholic prisoners with the names of witnesses. What will he do with it once compiled? My dear, I have to break my mind and admit it is I who will do something with it. I could not prevent grimacing as a puzzled frown crumpled his forehead along with well-worn lines. Shadows made deeper by the flickering firelight. You? What is this article to you? When I did not answer, he said with strong voice, Again I ask you, for what purpose will you have this article? I was obliged to tell him all. I will send it to Parliament, Pierre. What do you think of that? I raised my chin in defiance of the anger I knew would come. I think you are mad. The look in his eye told me he spoke truly. Our religion is the most reviled since that snake Oates hissed his lying accusations. He has much to answer for, and he will answer in the eyes of God. But we must answer to the king and his government, and if we give them reason, they will be glad to offer us extended stay in the very prison you visit and decry. He was right, but I was compelled to defend my actions. In faith, yes, I am mad. If being mad means being driven to distraction, that they close their eyes and look away. They say we are better than other countries and do not condone instruments of pain and extortion, yet they will not stop the use of them. Worse, evidence is that our government employs the keepers to use this foul practice to extract false confessions and accusations against others to their own end. Oates has only given them reason to use these methods, but they enjoyed their task too much and absolved their actions by saying it is in defence of the king. 'Tis not for you to reveal this abuse. You are not in a position to do so. You are a Catholic, a midwife, and a woman combined, Pierre softly pleaded. To me, you are perfection, but the eyes of others are marred by prejudice against you. They will find reason to turn this onto you. Do you think I should leave those innocents in prison to suffer when I can help them? I think you should pass your article to one who is not so disadvantaged. If you think so, tell me who should do it. Gadbury? He talks loud, but he does not have a backbone. Who then? Lord Castlemaine? Lord Peterborough? They are even now at risk for their acquaintance with those in the tower. Though I knew he would not like the idea, I was disappointed in his dissuasion. Some secret part of me had hoped he would approve and applaud my desire to help. What of your Lady Paris? Does she wish to present the article? And how, pray, is that different from my doing it? Is she not in a worse position? As you have said, her husband is even now held as a plotter. Less provocation than I can give will turn others onto her. Surely she is more of a target than myself. Perhaps you are right, Pierre said gently, quietly, a little defeated. You must know I support your charitable ways, ma chérie, but I cannot support you in this. You will bring danger to us all, so to you, to the children, to me, and to any that know us. Remember how badly you were injured before, and they had no reason against you then. Think what they might do if they have. I well remembered the Atterbury family and how they had called me the Popish Midwife, with such venom as they maliciously pummelled me to the ground for no other reason than my faith, and that was before Titus Oates shook up the hornet's nest and brought such strong revilement against us. Though they were found guilty of assault, it did not detract from how I had nearly died. Without Pierre, I would have. He had given me the will to live. Will you not then support me in this, Pierre? I said. I will do it with or without your support, but I would rather have your blessing. I had gone too far along this path to turn back now, so close to my destination. I had proofs and witnesses, and must do something with them. Pierre did not dismiss my plea out of hand, but thought deeply on it. He looked down at my hand held in his. I expected more discouragement. "'Tis wrong what they do. If a man or woman," he smiled at me in a way that wrinkles appeared all over his face, "does not stand tall for his fellows, if he or she does not defend the rights of those more vulnerable than they, then they cannot be seen as honourable nor worthy. Action might be the only thing that separates one with decent heart from one that stands by and allows foul play. If a person does not do what he can to prevent wrong against others, who then will defend that person when the same wrong is done to him?" Again he examined his thoughts in quiet, then suddenly declared, "I will not prevent you from your path, but declare I will be your strength in this venture." "Thank you, oh, thank you, my turtle." I kissed him strong on the lips. "Your wisdom is most honourable." "You inspire me, ma chérie, but I must ask a thing of you. You must take care of those who would conspire with and against. The latter are not weak, nor are they slow to act. If you rile them, they will as lief have your life as invite you to dine." "There now," I said, "I nearly forgot. Lady Paris extends an invitation to myself and Willoughby to dine at Paris House tonight. It would be the greatest pleasure if you would accompany me." "By the bones of St. Becket, did you not comprehend my warning? 'Tis not safe. You would place your life in danger for the sake of civil niceties." "It was but a moment since you said that you would stand by me and be my strength," I said reproachfully. "But to be so cosy with Lady Paris, ma chérie, do you not think that goes too far?" I am to introduce Willoughby to Lady Paris, and it would benefit the task if your presence was felt. You are wise and calm influence. Perhaps you could also offer Willoughby a contract or some employment to occupy him, to keep him from returning to the debtor's prison. Pierre paused before he said, I am a man of honour, Lizzie, and I will do it for you are my wife and a good woman. But I would not be a good husband if I did not warn you of the perilous path you take. I know, my dear, but if I do not take it, I will not find my destination. Those poor folk in the Palace of Horrors have none others to speak for them. The prisoners cannot speak for themselves for fear of retaliation on themselves or their families, and their families cannot speak for fear of punishment on the prisoners. I am not of them, and I can exploit this position. I have knowledge of many genteel women that I can ask to use their influence in my quest. Again, I say, take care, Lizzie. Position is not a guarantee of safety. In fact, some might use this as a very excuse they need to trap those in such positions when they get them no other way. He was right, of course. The wisdom was the thing that made him dear to me. I must be careful. I have more to unburden on you, Pierre, I added, knowing I must reveal everything if Pierre was to be involved. The man, Willoughby, has discovered a plot. What? Another plot? Are there not, even now, more plots than there are kings? Pierre laughed until he realised I did not. You are serious. What is this plot? I told him how Lord Shaftesbury planned to kill the king and blame the plot on the Catholics. I trust you have inspected the facts. Who are those involved? He asked, worry and tiredness etched deeply on his wrinkled face. We know a few and are discovering more. This task we have given Willoughby, by reason that he has a talent in this direction. This man has too many such talents, Pierre commented gruffly. Perhaps, but we must be glad for this blessing. He has of late set himself to discover more of the plot at the King's Bench, although, I mulled aloud, he is now returned to Newgate, another of his talents. I am told, being to escape most every prison he was ever held in. I shall come to dinner to meet this man and the good Lady Paris, if only to ensure your safety. I intend also to discover this man's agenda, and what he will gain from this. I fear someone must take care you do not extend your actions beyond what is safe. Merci, dear Flittermouse. My adoration for you is founded on firm ground. Together we will build a good case. Pierre lifted my hand to his lips once more and kissed them. Believe this deep in your heart, Lizzie. I would die for you if need be, though I'd lief as not. I prayed I would never test my husband's declaration. Chapter 10, 26th of April, 1679, afternoon. Captain Willoughby, I have it! Willoughby, I have it! I said, barely keeping from shouting and already drawing attention to myself from other persons nearby. Willoughby, come hither and look what I have done for you. The first time I saw him, Captain Thomas Willoughby informed me he was disowned by Baron Willoughby of Willoughby in Essex for disgracing him with bad debt. I did not know of this family, but my thoughts were not charitable towards any relative who would throw off one for simple debt that was not of the person's making. None is given life without resistance, for that is what makes us strong, yet some have it more tolerable than others. It appeared that the captain was tested early in childhood, and that my mother's mothering disposition responded to his call for aid. Now, however, Willoughby did not respond to my call. He did not move at all. He merely sat on the floor with his arms wrapped around his knees and his head resting on them as he was before, except this time his stillness gave cause for my words to carry both urgency and authority. "Thomas Willoughby, take your rump off that stinking floor and get over here," I said sternly as a mother talking to his child that did not get up on a cold morning to do their chores. After much calling and chivying, he looked up. Straight away, I saw streaks of clean skin from beneath his eyes and running over his cheekbones. I feared that, though he was no stranger to the wrong side of iron bars, the monstrous place had reached its barbaric claws inside of him in the way it reached into most every inmate in time, and was ripping the soul out of him. I had expectations that my good news would return some of his spirits to him. I would have him wipe those streaks from his face and bring him back to his natural humour. "Madame Cellier," he said with a weak tremor, but also with a faint hint of hope. "I have news that will cheer you, Willoughby. Come, do not be shy of it." He did not stand, but continued sitting, unmoving. It seemed Willoughby's life force had left him and gone elsewhere, for it was not in him. When everything a man had to live for was another day of wallowing in his own filth, he would not be the first person nor the last that this place would destroy the will of. Even his appetite had faded by the day. Some prisoners went down faster than others, but this one needed to be the wit and the charm of society, any society, to prosper. He would not survive a long duration in this place. I had heard a prison had never held him so long. Such was his dislike of being held and his want to escape. His dejection took his charms from him. How could a woman be anything but maternal towards a young man with his backbone removed? Instinct would bid me hold him in my arms until the shaking stopped and I could wipe his face clean. Any flutter that might have surprised me in earlier meetings had been long bedded down beneath a blanket of compassion. "I have bread for you, Willoughby," I said, having found the smell in that place too much of late. I have bread for you, Willoughby, I said. Having found the smell in that place too much of late, I had revived using a lavender-scented handkerchief in order to breathe freely, but now removed it from my face so that he might see my smile. "I have something that will satisfy you a whole lot more. Come closer that I might give it to you." I deliberately slipped a little sauciness into my tone for the benefit of Harris, who was standing out of sight behind the corner. He would hear us, but would not see our actions unless his suspicion brought him forth. Did he not have wits enough to observe how the rushlight behind him cast his dancing shadow into the corridor? None doubted Harris doubled as a spy for the government to discover any plot or any indiscretion that would be held against a man already doomed for his religion. I did not wish him to think Willoughby and I had but a charitable or flirtatiousness acquaintance, nor did I wish him to pursue his examination of that morning of why we stayed yoked together as two cart horses. It was easier to have him suspect that the only use I had for Willoughby was as a sinful woman of the street, and play to the common belief that all midwives were whores, but it was not a part I enjoyed playing, especially since it did not help to dispel that false belief. Again I gestured for Willoughby to come over, but still his puzzled frown showed his confusion, and still he did not move. He was too far from the bars, or I would have reached out and grabbed him from his slump. At last, some comprehension in his countenance. He put one hand against the wall and used it to balance and support himself as he pushed with the other on the floor and rolled first to his knees and then up onto unsteady feet. Once healthy, smooth skin had paled and sunk to the bones of his face and hands. He now resembled every other prisoner here, to whom the meagre bread I and my friends bought was little but a way of forestalling death. "Aye, my dear, come on over here and where I can see you. You are a skinny one, Dux, I said, falling into local slang. Come on, don't be shy. With my hand I continued to gesture madly for him to hurry. I did not want the busybody Harris coming round the corner and seeing what I would give him, for he would take and examine it. Willoughby almost fell against the bars and took hold of them to balance himself. His weakness was no weakness of character but of body. Lowering my voice to a whisper, I said, "Give me your hand." When he proffered it, I placed some coins into his palm, and because he simply looked at them, closed his fingers round them and pushed his hand down by his side. Perhaps that we were too silent and his curiosity was piqued. Harris came round the corner at that point, his nose for gossip right perky, for he immediately sized us up and saw me holding Willoughby's hand. I did not dare let on I had given the captain money. There were no witnesses if he took it away. Not only might he take what was Willoughby's, but he might also take what was mine too, a thing that had happened before. The turnkeys had no more compassion or compunction about blackmailing a visitor out of what they had than taking it from a prisoner. They saw prisoners' families and friends as responsible for the charges they extorted as the prisoner himself. Stories were rife and detailed about the diverse ways the keepers thought to extract many pecuniary benefits for themselves. As I had told Lady Paris, they would take everything owned by our prisoner's family. At the right price, every human thing could be bought, from the luxury of a less crowded cell where one might lie down, or even a private cell, to having straw or a blanket to lie on at night. I had not told Lady Paris how those heavy irons they made a prisoner pay to put on, and not only prevented movement, but ripped the flesh to the bone, and when they took payment to have them unlocked again, like a knife the irons would take the flesh with them. I could not help but remember the white of the bone of Prancer's legs, and the ragged, putrid edges of flesh around it. Another thing I had not told her ladyship, for it was not a thing for her gentlewoman's ears, was that of luxuries as the bucket. For a fee, a prisoner might have the privilege of a bucket for his waist, without which he must lie in it. Of course, when it was full, he must pay for it to be taken too. Families of inmates often watched their loved ones thrown into debtor's prison for want of money to pay bad debt, only to be further forced to watch them die inside for want of a crust of bread, and no monies to pay for necessities. It was not unusual for scarce found payments meant for food to jingle in the jailer's pocket against his keys, with no bread given. 'Twas the same for water, no water without money, and sometimes none with it either. And since it was the bread earners who most often found themselves locked up, so it was their fate in turn to see their families suffer and starve, only to join them inside, leaving their brats to survive on the streets. I saw these things with my own eyes. It was no less ill to see the lot of the debtors, whose only crime was poverty, than to see that of Catholics whose only crime was their faith. All were equally punished and bled dry for the privilege of being so trapped. My daily visits alleviated their lot so little, at times I wished I had tears left to cry. When a man lay down determined to die, that he might end his and his wife's servitude to the prison leeches, he would refuse my alms, and no argument would change his mind. I wished to alleviate his pain, but I understood his desire to die quickly rather than to make his loved ones suffer longer. The plight of most would not change for want of time. Those who would never have more funds, and what might come to them was best used to feed the children. A prisoner could only pray his fortune might be changed by an unexpected sum of money coming to him, or by a wealthy gentleman paying his debts and taking him as a servant until the debt was repaid. Since Willoughby's prosperous family had cut him off from his inheritance, he was in no better position than a pauper that had spent his entire life surviving the street. Nay, perhaps worse, for he did never learn the street ways to cheat death that poverty taught, nor what character he should play in fate as it was dealt. In a family of as good fortune as his own, Willoughby would have had expectations for a fair deal, and would never have needed to watch for the crooked croupier of life, hiding the good cards by shuffling them up his sleeve. The scales against him to play straight would weigh heavier on this man than on one who knew a fixed game was inevitable and had no expectations of honesty. Willoughby clasped the coins as I straightened the front of his jacket, trying not to cringe as I touched something wet on the lapel, making certain to look as if we were caught in intimacy. "He might have been a passable catch when he came in, Mrs. Cellier, but you would not want him now, if you know what I mean. Look to his hair, missus, see if you can find better company in what crawls there." Unwillingly, I looked at Willoughby's hair and indeed saw it moved. My instinct was to recoil, but I made myself place a hand to his forehead and wipe a lock from his face. "There is a fair bit of game in this one yet, Harris," I laughed in a bawdy fashion. If they expected lewd behaviour from me, then I would play their game, as if my only interest in this man was to bed him. At this time there was naught further from the truth. Apart from his stink and mucky skin and lice crawling in his matted hair, I had my Pierre at home to satisfy me. But as long as lewd thoughts filled the gatekeeper's head, they would not suspect my true intentions. "Well, don't mess the goods about unless you're willing to pay, of course," he laughed with a baseness that put us on the same low level. "Give him bread if you want," he added generously, "and be gone." With that, Harris walked back around the corner and away to make some other person's life a misery. Finally, we were alone. "Captain Willoughby, Thomas," I tried as the man's eyes had glazed and he stared lifeless ahead, even standing as one of the living. "I am having you out of here." At this, there was a tiny flicker of something that might have been recognition, or might only have been a blinking at the piece of dirt caught on his long lashes. "You must find yourself, Thomas. I will pay your debt for you today, and you will be released as soon as I have that done." His dark brown eyes came to focus on my face, not yet in hope, for the news had not reached his heart, but the words were in his ears now, trying to reach his mind. "And I have my maid Margaret fetching some fresh clothes for you to wear." Only now, realising his state, Willoughby slowly looked down at his filthy rags he had worn since pawning his own good clothes. "You have done this for me, madam. Why would you do so?" "You have honoured your deal with me to collect important information. I believe you might be of further assistance to my husband and myself. As I once said to you, I will do anything to repay your kindness, my fair lady." It is no small wonder how, when hope reaches the heart, it gives life back to the body. Already a spark had returned to Willoughby's eyes and flame to his cheeks. I silently thanked God's hand for reaching inside him and relighting the fire. Remembering that I was his instrument for doing so filled me with happiness. I told Willoughby of my scheme, that he must pretend to be my plaything if I should show interest, so they would not charge me twice over, or even thrice over, his worth to release him. I had other uses for my money than to add to a jailer's overspilling coffer. I looked at the state of him. Lady Paris would see him today, but not before he had the prison washed off him, and not before the creatures eating off his skin and scalp was scrubbed away. If we must shave his head to rid the infestation, then a periwig would have to be found. He could not stand before the lady like that. "I will come back for you shortly when Margaret gets here, and you will come with me, clean yourself, and put on your clothes. Then I will take you to Lady Paris, who wishes to see you." "Indeed, I am forever indebted to you, madam." As I have told you, your payment for this kindness was given in advance, and will perhaps save many from worse treatment. It is I owes you for your labour on this article, and also for your aid in exposing the design to fix the plot against the king onto our faith. I am glad to have been assistance in those matters. May all men of all faiths one day walk free. Aye, and may we all be a small part of history of it. It was indeed an uplifting idea that what we did today might shape the future, even if only in some small way. Now I have bread to feed to some that need it. I will be back to see you soon. I gave him a chunk and left him staring sightlessly down at his open palms, bread sitting on one and coin on the other.